Hi there, welcome to Box Let's Test. This far we have been executing all our test cases onto our local machine. Now in this video we are going to see how can we execute the same test cases but now inside a Docker container. So I've created this project and already exported it to GitHub. In here you would find some important files which are required for you to be able to execute your test cases inside a Docker container. Now, I assume that you have the basic understanding of Docker images and containers. And with that, I'll tell you the image that we are going to use. So this is the GitHub page where you'll find all the Cypress Docker images. And primarily, you have these three types. Cypress base, as you could see in the description, all operating system dependencies, but no Cypress and no browsers. In Cypress browser, this contains all system dependencies in some browsers. Then Cypress included. This contains all operating system dependencies, Cypress, in some browser installed globally, which means that we are going to make use of this image. But hold on, we are not going to use as it is. We are going to update it slightly to suit to our requirements. All right. Now, let's open this Cypress included in a separate tab, and in here you see all the different versions. So we are going to work on 6.8.0 version in this video, right? So you could say that every time a new version of Cypress is launched, this image is updated. So you see a new entry in here every time a new version of Cypress is launched. All right, so once you have this image, all right, let's see what we have to do. So they are saying that, just by the single docker command, right, you can execute your test cases inside the docker. Let's try to understand this command first. So we're saying that, hey, okay, docker run, which means that we are going to generate a container from an image, which is this. All right, but now this hyphen it stands for interactive mode, which means that, when you run that thing in the terminal of your local computer, right, in the console, you see what all things are happening. So when you use this it, you can also see the same in the console. Okay, so then this hyphen v stands for volume mounting, which means that you are binding basically the file system of your local machine with the container file system. All right, so in here we are saying that hyphen v, which is now this pwd, stands for present working directory. So you're mapping your present working directory, which means that, all the files within your project, be it the Cypress folder, node modules, and everything. All right, and package.json, cypress.json, and so on. Now you're saying that map this present working directory with this E2E folder. Now this E2E folder would get created if it's already not there in the container. All right, and then you're setting with hyphen w, you're saying that, hey, in the container the working directory would be this E2E, and then you're just passing in the name of the image. All right, great. So do you want to remember this command every time you want to execute your test cases? Just map it with what we have done with the package.json script object, right? So whatever commands that we were executing in the terminal to execute our test cases, right? We said that, there's no point in remembering all that, right? Better is, you just create a property in the scripts object in package.json, and in there, all right, you write your script, and that ways you just have to execute that command. You don't need to remember these long statements. Great. All right, so now what are we going to do? So let me open this 6.8.0, all right, and open the docker file. All right, so in here, if we could see, I mean, this particular image so is built on top of this particular image, all right, Cypress browser. And then we are doing certain things in here like updating the dependencies to get the latest and greatest packages. All right, and then we are also downloading certain other things like, Cypress globally. All right, and then at the end we have this entry point. Okay, all right, now this is important why I'm mentioning that, because the thing is, it's not just about, executing a project using that command and by doing the volume mounting. At times, you have to share the image with your developers. All right, so If that is the case, you have to build your own image which contains everything. Image is nothing, it's a combination of different layers built on top of each other. All right, and we're going to see that. So then how are you going to do that? And what is this entry point? So basically, whenever you create a container from an image, this is the first thing that gets executed. And basic thing is that a container is alive as long as there is some active task happening within that container. So the moment you create an image from this container, this particular thing would be executed, Cypress run. Now what you can do with this command, you can say okay, hyphen hyphen browser Chrome, which means that then you're instructing that hey, execute all my test cases onto the Chrome browser. All right, same way you can say Firefox and so on, right? But I want to generate reports, Mochawesome report. I just want to, also extract my video files from the container file system onto my local system, because, like I said, a container is alive as long as the task is happening. Now, in testing, what happens is you run your test cases, and once all your test cases are done, like the task is completed, which means that container would be stopped, and then you won't be able to access those files, right? Which means that you have to then somehow, you have to have the ability to somehow extract those files. And the way we do that in containerization approach is you bind the file system. All right, so you couple the file system between your local machine and to your container. All right, so that's a basic theory about it. Let's see what do I have in here for you. So I have this instruction file, so I'm going to open that. All right, and this is basically a three-step process, and let's understand that. So you should have a working Cypress project and Docker setup onto your local machine. All right, so there's a link for that. If you don't have this already, then you just visit this particular link, and in here you would find the installation step for different operating systems. All right, I'm currently working on Windows, and it's a Windows Home, so I had to go an extra mile to set it up onto my machine. But if you are Windows Pro or on Mac or Linux, I mean, it's going to be relatively straightforward. But anyhow, whatever is your operating system, you would find the installation steps at this page. All right, now the second step is we are going to create our own docker file, and that is going to give us the image for our project. All right, and now rather than building everything from scratch, we'll extend an existing Cypress docker image, and we are going to extract which one, Cypress included. All right, and the version, specific version would be 6.8.0. All right, great. All right, now this particular Cypress included image is actually based on this particular operating system. And this why we have been writing our commands in the series on Windows operating system. Remember, like in the package.json, let me show you. So I open my package.json, and when I have to generate the reports, earlier we used a Windows specific command, but now the commands that you're seeing in here, these are specific to this Linux version of operating system. All right, great. So now let's understand this. So what is a Docker file? So you know this file helps you in creating an image, okay, a Docker image, and it follows kind of you can say two column format. So first column always represents, so everything that you're seeing in capital letters, basically I'm referring these as the first column. All right, and first column contains the instructions, and anything after that that you're seeing, these are the commands. These are the commands, and you see the commands in the second column. You have to read it like this. All right, now what are you doing in here? So we are saying from Cypress, so we are saying that okay, hey, this is the image that I want to build upon, and so fetch that. And then what we are saying is we are creating a directory which is Cypress Docker. All right, so that's the folder that we are creating, and we are setting this folder in the next line as the working directory. All right, now next step is what I'm doing is I'm copying what .package.json, which means that from my local host, all right, I'm copying this package.json file to Cypress Docker folder inside the container, and dot is representing that one. All right, same way I'm copying package log .json cypress.json. I'm also copying my Cypress folder. And then what I'm doing is, because see, the thing is, in the default image, right, there's just one dependency that's being installed, which is what? Cypress, all right? But in your project, you might have dependency on so many other things, like, take an example of reports, all right? So then is one of the reason why we need to extend this particular image, all right? And the way that now we are doing it, because we have copied the package.json file, and I'm now running the command npm install, which means that all the dependencies related to my project would be a part of that image now, all right? And you could see that I've overwritten the entry point now, and this would give me the luxury actually to run any command or any script object, from my package.json, and that ways I have control. So let us look at our package.json as well. So what do we have in here? Right, so we have, as usual, like, we are going to run our test cases, and then we are going to generate the report. This is what we are trying to achieve, all right? Now, what are the additional things in here? So we are going to execute our test cases on browser of our choice. Like, if I don't pass in anything, if I just say npm test, all right? So I'm going to say, okay, hey, so all right, let's take a step back and let's go back to this. So we say entry point npm run. So I want to append some command to this npm run, okay, when I run my test cases. So if I say npm run test, okay, so it is going to execute what? Let's see that. It is going to execute npm run scripts or npm run post test, all right? So let us see what do we have in npm run scripts. In npm run script, we are saying Cypress run, which means that default browser, all right? And then we are going to do all the pre-testing when we are clearing, the folder. Now here also there's an interesting thing that we have to understand. Now when you do the mounting, right, because like I said that, once a container is stopped, you'll not be able to access its file system, right? So you have to build some kind of coupling between your local host file system and to the Docker container file system. So even after Docker is stopped, you can still access those files. All right. Now the thing is, when you do this mounting, when you do this volume mounting, right, you can't delete that folder. So if you have watched my Mochawesome report video, in there, we were deleting the whole reports folder, but now we can't do that because we had established this volume binding. All right. So now what are we going to do? We are going to recursively delete all the files within that folder. That, yes, this is what we can do. All right. We can't delete the folder, but we can delete all the files within that. And hence in here, you see some difference. All right. Now that is one thing. The other thing is, now I've created the browser specific scripts, like, I can execute Cypress run and provide in the browser Chrome headless and so on, right? This will give me the ability to execute my test cases onto Chrome or Firefox. All right, great. And then in here I have this. All right, so I hope things are clear this far. Let's move forward. Now here are some important terms and definition. Basically, if you want to read more about it, in simple word, you can say image is a static snapshot of containers configuration. All right, and a container basically is an application sandbox. Each container is based on an image. Entry point, I told you this is the first thing that would get executed. Command, the main purpose of command is to provide defaults for the executing container. Defaults can include an executable or it can omit the executable, in which case you must specify an entry point instruction as well. We have already done that. In our case, it is what? npm run. All right, great. And same way, we have already talked about volume and so on. All right, so let us look at our Docker file. It's the same, right? So I've already explained this Docker file. So now with the help of this, we are going to build our image. Now let's go back, and this is the command to create the build. All right, so let's go back, and in your terminal you just say docker build -t will allow you the ability to give a name to the image that you are creating. And with dot, you are saying that, hey, at the root of the project, you will find the Docker file. All right, great. Use that. Hit enter, and this will start building that image. All right, an image is nothing, constitutes of different layers. All right, and if a layer is already present onto your system, all right, it's going to be faster. All right, now image is already there onto my system. just that I just wanted to show you that this is the command that you have to use. Great. All right. And once you do that, this is a Docker desktop. In here, you would see this is the basically the image. It is of size 3.04 GB, and currently there are no containers running. So we'll move on to that in a while. So you could see that was really quick, but in your case, if you are doing it for the first time, it is going to take some time, all right? Because you are building something of size 3.04 GB. Obviously, I mean, it's going to take some time. All right. Great. So the task is not done yet because next thing is, yes, you have the image and you can run your test cases from here, but there's a better way to do that. So I'm moving towards that. Now, like I said, the developers when they deploy an application, right, might be dependent on multiple services, right? And if they're also using the Docker concept, right, each service has to communicate with other service, right? So there has to be some network established between each of them, all right? So now, same way, what are you going to do then? So you're going to support your developers by saying that, hey, here's one more service from my side. This service is going to execute all the test cases, right? Yeah. So we create docker-compose.yml file, and this is the latest and greatest version. And inside that, we'll mention all the different services, right? Now I've created three different services, uh, and each targets one specific browser. So E2-Electron, as the name suggests, it targets the Electron browser. Then you have E2 Chrome and E2E Firefox. All right, you can give any name. Right. Now the thing is, inside that service, right, here mentioned, okay, this is the image that you should use to build the container, and then command. This is going to be appended to in the entry point. So if you say docker compose one E2E-electron, which means that the entry command would be what? npm run, and then you append test, npm run test. All right. So then look at your package.json. What would get executed? So it would execute all your test cases, all right, inside the Electron browser, and eventually it would generate the report and videos folder in here. Now let's go back to the Docker Composer, and in here we are saying, here's the volume mounting. All right, so what we are saying that this is the folder, Cypress videos folder, and my videos would be generated inside what? Because this is my working directory, all right, and inside that I've copied the Cypress folder, and videos are generated inside what? The Cypress folder, and hence this is my mapping. And same way we have this report mapping in here. All right. So now once this is done, all you have to do is I just say docker hyphen compose. All right. I say run, and I just pass in any specific service name. All right. That is it. You can also do like docker compose up. Now what that would do? So that would create three container, one for each service, and your execution will be happening in parallel, right? Another advantage, all right? So you on the same machine, all right, you can execute your Cypress test cases in parallel. All you have to say in that case is docker hyphen compose up, all right? But let's see that one by one. So if I execute Electron, I'll rather go for Chrome, all right? So I just say docker compose one e2e hyphen Chrome, and so you could see creating network and blah blah blah. So it has started working, and you would also see this option because we are sharing the file system across these between these local host and container, all right? And you could see the file reports and videos. These folders are being created. We also go in here, and now you see, okay, a container is being created. So we open that, it's running. Okay, so yeah, this thing is started, and we are also seeing the logs in here as well. Okay, and one more interesting thing, so if you come in here, there are no node modules and all right. So if I execute this test case onto my local machine, it will fail because there are no node folders, and hence all the dependencies that are required from my project, and there are quite a lot, as you could see, Cypress and all that is required for the mockup, and these dependencies are not here. All right, so ideally if you do that, I mean, it will fail, right? So onto my local host. So that proves that it is executing inside the Docker, and you're going to also see that in here. All right. So we said Cypress, hey Cypress, run inside the Docker and use the browser Chrome, and that's what you're seeing in here. All right. In the meanwhile, here's my email just in case you want to contact me for any queries. So our test case execution is finally started, and you could see the browser that is being picked is Chrome 89 headless, and has found those two files. Alright, those screenshots are being captured, which is great. This is primarily the, I guess, the timeout issue. Alright, okay, so the merge is in process now, and report is saved in here. Great, so this execution is completed. So let us see what do we have in here. So we have these videos, and we also have the report inside this. Let me try to open that. So I'm opening that with live server. All right, so you could see that the reports are also generated. Now there are a couple of things that you have to now understand here. All right, so I'm not attached a screenshot, but if you can go and refer to my Mochawesome video, then you can obviously do that, right? The focus of this video is to understand, how does things differ when you start working on Docker. All right, so now here the thing is, the possible drawback of the approach that I've shown to you is that tomorrow, if you add more test cases in here, all right, you have to generate a new image, right? Because let's go back. So when I generated that image, images are immutable. That's a part that we have to understand. So I copied the whole Cypress folder to the working directory of this container that would eventually be created from this image, right? So any change that you make afterwards, right, will not be a part of that image, right? Is it good? Is it bad? Again, it comes down to what is your requirement. So every time you do something new, there's a new feature, you write your test cases, you ship your image to the developers. They include that in their docker compose YAML file. All right, you help them in setting that up. All right, and then you are always running your latest and greatest test cases. All right, so if that is the case, it works perfectly fine. If that is not the case, hey, what is the solution? Pretty simple, right? So rather than copying this thing in here, all right, so rather than copying this Cypress folder, what you can do is you set here one more volume binding mounting. Okay, so in here you say Cypress, right? So dot Cypress, and then you say colon Cypress Docker forward slash Cypress. Okay, so that ways you keep on changing or updating, adding, deleting, whatever what you want to do with your integration folder. I mean, when the container is being built, the container is going to read your test cases from this particular folder. Okay, so it's up to you. How do you want to use it? Now the next thing is, if I say, I'm also telling you another problem with this, and not a problem, it's like, it's a homework for you. So in the package.json, all right, so we have what? So we're saying, okay, if you do npm test, it is going to run things on Electron browser, all right, and it is going to generate all the reports in this particular folder hierarchy, right? So a report folder would be created inside that Mocha, and Mocha reports, which will contain report HTML and so on. Okay, great, fine. But when you run Chrome test, then also we are referring to the same folder, which means that if you say docker compose up, let me show you this. Docker compose, all right, and I just say up. So now in here you would see three containers, all right? You see three containers, right? This is a previous one which is being exited, and now we have created these three new containers. So this execution is now happening in parallel, but problem is, right, and it's not a problem, it's a homework, like you said. Now what do you have to do? So you have to create three respective folders. All right, one for Chrome, one for Electron, one for Firefox. Great. Yes, and that ways you can save your reports in the respective folders. All right. Currently, what is going to happen is they are going to overwrite each other. Not a tricky stuff, right? You can do that. That's a homework. All right. So what else? Now, yeah, let's understand what is the drawback of uh, using that Cypress included image, Docker image. So that Docker image basically offers you only two browsers, all right, Chrome and Firefox. Electron is inbuilt, right? So you can say three. But what about Edge, right? So now let's understand that. So what you have to do is you have to create your own image if you have to execute the test cases on Edge as well, and it's not that difficult, all right. So again, you have to say from, and you have to pick a base image, all right. So you have to pick a base image, and we say node, let's say, and this is basically the code that I've copied from Cypress uh, included image only, all right. So I'm just showing you how to build that image, right. So you say, okay, let's pick our image, all right, which supports the Edge browser. And Edge is outdated, so Edge Chromium, right. So if Edge Chromium is, let's say, not supported on this particular operating system, all right, let's not use that image. So you have to build your own Dockerfile, basically, all right, and it would be something like this. So you say from node and user root, all right. So if you're working in Linux and all, so you have this admin user root, right. Why you require admin user? Because you have to do a lot of installation, and it's allowed for the root user, for the admin user, all right. So what you're saying is, okay, from node, use this particular user and update all the dependencies, all right. Then what you're saying is install the specific version of Chrome, which you can also control it, by passing it from the command line. All right. So here in you are using what you are deploying or installing the Chrome, right? And then you are adding the zip utility because it's required in some cases. You also need to, remember you need to compress your videos and all right. So Cypress does that. By the way, I have disabled that in this particular video. My system is slow, so you could see that all my test cases are executed, all right, on all the containers, and they must be in the stock mode now, all right. But now the problem that I was highlighting is there is just one report folder, and same way one videos folder, all right. So these containers, they have overwritten each other's data, all right. So you don't want to do it, right. You want to keep the reports and videos separate for each of these browsers, isn't it? Right. So you come in here, you see that same way you do something for Firefox, you install the Firefox, all right, and you also want to add the Edge Chromium, and you do it in here, and then you can, of course, you do the remaining stuff, right. You can say, okay, hey, now copy, make this directory, and then set this directory as a working directory, then start copying things, all right. Then you say npm install, and then you say command or entry point, whatever. So we'll say better is entry point, you say entry point, and then you say npm run, basically, and then you can again control things from your docker file, all right. So this is about it. I hope you like this, all right. Thank you so much.